So who here knows who Milton Erickson is? So those of you who have studied hypnotherapy or NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, may have heard of him. He was a very accomplished hypnotherapist and psychotherapist, I should say. And he would basically got hypnotherapy accepted as a legitimate therapeutic intervention. Before then, it was seen as, a trick, It was just... And one of the things he used to say was the problem was once the solution. Now, what he meant by that was there will be a time or a context where your fear, your phobia served you. So if you were a child and you felt trapped, that fear of being trapped, was a perfectly useful thing. Or there may be a context where this way of thinking is perfectly useful. But what happens is your brain has generalized it. So it's gone, this works in this situation, I'm going to use it in all situations. So had a nightclub doorman come see me. Anger management issues. It wouldn't surprise me, they're normally so calm and passive, aren't they? And this bouncer talking to him, and I go, okay, so you're angry. For what purpose do you get angry? And he thought about it for a moment, and he goes, oh, well, when some drunk lads, trying to get into the club, I need to be able to stiff my chest out and go, lads, not tonight. Perfectly acceptable. I mean, I wouldn't say anger's that useful in a lot of contexts, but okay, I'll give him that. There might have been other ways, but it seems like a fairly useful response in that kind of environment. So the problem wasn't necessarily the anger, it was the fact that he had that go-to response whenever he was talking to his wife, talking to his kids, talking to his boss. And so he had one pattern and he was using it everywhere. And it's a bit like going to buy ice cream from the shop and only having vanilla. So it's not always about taking away that pattern. It's just about, giving more choice, more flexibility for the mind. Now, the thing is, a lot of our behavior is meeting a need on the subconscious level, what we call secondary gain. So in the case of fear, often it's a form of protection. It can be other things, safety, avoiding rejection. So, social situations or public speaking, it's avoiding being put on the spot or humiliated. So there's always a need behind our patterns of thinking. Another one, I had fear of flying client, and he'd had a fear of flying, and we worked on all the patterns of fear, and they're gone. He says, my fear's gone, but I still can't get on the plane. And so we started discussing it and exploring it. And it turns out, he said, I've got it. I know what it is. He goes, before I came to see you, I had a conversation with my wife, and she said, oh, it's great. You're going to be able to fly again. Because when we've done that, we can see the world, spend a few months traveling, and then we can settle down and have kids. And in that moment, his subconscious mind had gone, I'm not ready for kids. If I let go of my fear, I'm going to have to settle down and have kids. So our subconscious mind sometimes takes shortcuts. Like I say, it won't necessarily be rational, logical, but it just goes, what's the quickest way to get me a result? And so we can hold on to all sorts of patterns. People who often have problems all the time, sometimes it's because it was how they got love. They only got attention from their parents, say, when they had a problem. So they learned, oh, subconsciously, problems get me love. So at the subconscious level, it will always be meeting a need, and it's good to work on that. So safety or protection, as I said, is a common one. It's good to work on that first, because if you just work on the top layer, the actual issue, very often what will happen is it will be like whack-a-mole. So, to use another example, smokers. Someone quits smoking and then they overeat. And it's because they needed something to change. They needed that excuse to have a break, and they needed to do something with their body and an excuse to breathe. So when you work on the deeper level, when you work on the secondary gain, the problem being the solution, it can often change a lot of things. around it long term rather than just sort of surface patterns.